My name's Charles Canter. Grew up in Des Peres, on Des Peres Road. On our side of the street, it was Parkway, and the other side of the street, it was Kirkwood. So I was on the far eastern side of the district. However, when we moved there in 58, 59, it was really the Parkway Consolidated School District because it had just formed from two rural districts. So I started second grade in Mason Ridge, and from there went to Parkway Junior High School, the old Parkway Junior Senior before they enclosed it. So we opened up Parkway South when I was in 8th grade, and then when we went to 10th grade, because senior high was 10th grade, I had split sessions at the Parkway High School. We had the evening shift. The juniors and seniors had the day shift, and the sophomores had the night shift. And then for junior and senior, started Parkway West. So 5 schools.
Wow.
From second grade on.
Wow. So you're good at transitions.
Yeah.
You got good at transitions.
So memories. I was thinking about this. There's things that Mason Ridge, back in the early 60s, I can remember doing duck and cover drills in Mason Ridge in case we had an atomic bomb drop.
Wow.
I can remember lots of Cub Scout stuff in the high school. Strong memory of about this time on a Friday afternoon, and the 6th grade teacher pulled the TV in and turned it on, and we watched for the rest of the afternoon the coverage of the Kennedy assassination because he had just been shot that afternoon. And moving on to Parkway Junior High School at the time in 7th grade, having to keep a coat with me in the winter, walking between the buildings on the outside was a little
brisk.
It was interesting. They finally enclosed it, which was a good idea.
Yeah.
And we moved down to South, and in many ways, South Junior High was going to be the predecessor to the same people who were at Parkway West. And so then we all moved up to Parkway High School. And as I said, we had split sessions. We had the evening shift. Everybody was there for 2 hours from noon to 2, and it was cramped. We had a single band. That's when band was, but it was cramped. And then it was interesting after sophomore, when they formed Parkway West, the principal of the high school, Al Burr, who I know, is that he went to West, and he took pretty much the football coach and most of the good teachers with him and the counselors. And so they split up the district, and initially I was supposed to go to Central, and then I actually petitioned the school district, and I was allowed to go to West. And so, we spent 2 years there, and I think that was very interesting because, we started, our group you start from scratch. I can remember on an August evening sitting out in front of the high school with other people deciding what's the name of the mascot going to be. It's West, so it should be something Western. Are we going to call it the Mustangs? Cowboys came up, Roadrunners. I think it ended up Longhorns because there were a bunch of people in Claymont at the time that were from Texas, and I think that's how it became Longhorns pretty much. But all of the, you start all those things and how the yearbook gets, all the things they started, so that started that. And so he finished up in 70, and it's interesting. You spend so much time with a group of people, and as you get ready to leave, you say you kind of know where you are within the group you grew up with. Then you wonder, well, how am I going to be with another group? Where's that going to be? Are all of us that are really, have achieved here, are we going to achieve when we get out of here? And some actually in my class achieved quite a lot, perhaps even more than I did. So some did, and so it was all in all a good, positive experience. And I think that proves, at least at the time, that public schools can teach folks. My kids went to Webster Groves because we live in Webster. But also much anymore, people talk about how they have to get their kids in private schools to get a good education, and I think that that's not necessarily so.
So you feel like you were well prepared when you went to med school from
Well,
your Parkway years, or?
I didn't really decide to go to med school till I was junior in college. And I went to Brown. I think I was the first Parkway graduate to go to Brown. And initially I was going to go into marine biology. And I got up to Brown and kind of goofed off my first 2 years. Found out there were a lot of people who were smarter than me. And so I didn't get around to thinking about going to med school until I was a junior in college. And didn't get into med school the first time because my grades weren't good enough because I'd goofed off my first 2 years. Spent another year at Brown, got a master's, then got into St. Louis U and went there and for 4 years. Then I went over to Children's for internship and sort of fell in a rut for the next 35 years.
I think they're very glad to have had you. I really do.
Sometimes yes, sometimes maybe no.
Now, you are medical director of the pediatric transplant program at St. Louis Children's Hospital. What influenced you to decide to go into that particular medical specialty?
Well, I'm really primarily a pediatric cardiologist, and I came back full-time to WashU in '86, did a lot of different clinical things. Some of the first transplant patients we did at Children's were my patients. And at the time, pediatric heart failure and transplantation was in its infancy. And for being in academics and needing to do some publications, it seemed like a good area to write about because there wasn't much known about it. And so as a result of that, I think because I had patients in it, that's how I got into it. One thing led to another. Started writing, you start doing critical analysis, and all of a sudden you're in drug trials and other research projects, and most recently into mechanical assist devices in children, and so it just sort of evolved out of that. I mean, pediatric heart failure and transplant is probably the newest subsection of pediatric cardiology. So to start in the ground floor when it was in its infancy, and it's really has matured, has been quite satisfying.
Good. What advice would you give to high school students today who may be considering a career in medicine?
Don't go.
No.
Well, I think that, it's interesting. There's one other guy I found out who was the high school quarterback who ended up being an osteopath, Gary Doss, who, from what I knew at the time, didn't have any idea he wanted to do that. I think that first of all, people are going to find out what they like to do. All too often, I've seen folks over the years, and they don't really know what they want to do, and so they look to people, and people are very good at telling other people what to do, especially younger people. And so you'll see young people get into situations, they're in a situation, they start doing something because they've been told that's what they should do. And then all of a sudden they'll wake up and say, I don't really like this, but what I'm supposed to do. And I think I would recommend to people is sit around and try to figure out what's fun for you and what you like to do. And if you figure out what you like to do, then you're probably going to be satisfied because you're doing what you like to do. And the nice thing about medicine is that there's lots of different careers within medicine, even within being a physician. You can be a primary care physician in the city, in a rural area. You can go into a subspecialty. You can do a lab and do bench research. You can do people research. You can be an educator. And a lot of people will have multiple careers within one career because they move from place to place to place, whatever suits their interest at the time. So it's a great opportunity, and people shouldn't short on assuming on going on a single path. They should, I think they should get a broad idea of education and learn more than just what you want to do. You know, probably one of the best teachers I had here at Parkway was our social studies teacher. I started sophomore at Parkway and for 3 years, and Roland Klein. And he demanded a lot, but he was probably the first teacher that really sat down and wasn't so interested in teaching people about facts. It was trying to teach them how to think and analyze things. And even though we were doing history, he took it on himself to do art and architecture. So each period from Greek to Roman to Middle Ages to the Renaissance, not only did we have to learn about the history, we had to learn about art and architecture. And he went to Europe every summer, and so he'd take pictures. And so, you know, part of it was him actually taking his slideshow of all the buildings where he was. And, you know, it's kind of funny. One of the things he liked, one of the places he really liked and spent a lot of time talking on was the cathedral at Chartres, which is supposed to be one of the premier Gothic cathedrals. And really what I know about art and architecture was really from him. And so, you know, gosh, 92, 93, got to go over to France to give a talk. So on a weekend, you know, I was in Paris and took a train trip, which you can go to Chartres and do a day trip. And so we went out to which is a small country town, walked into the cathedral, and I stood in the middle of it, and you know, with the beautiful Chartres blue stained glass, and looked around and said to myself, Roland Klein, I made it to Chartres, I'm here, you know, which was, you know, which, I mean, so things like that stick with you. And in many ways, the things that stick with me from Parkway aren't so much science and medicine, it's the other stuff, because there were some great teachers in the other stuff, and some of the, you know, some of the teachers regarding literature and history, that's the stuff that sticks with you, not so much exactly what you do every day.